Hello, everyone. I'm Judge Janine Pirro, along with Jessica Tarloff, Brian Kilmeade, Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. President Biden finally doing what he should have done days ago, unequivocally supporting Israel and forcefully condemning Hamas.
There are moments in this life, and I mean this literally, when the pure, unadulterated evil is unleashed on this world. The people of Israel lived through one such moment this weekend. The bloody hands of the terrorist organization Hamas. Women raped, assaulted, paraded as trophies. Families hid their fear for hours and hours, desperately trying to keep their children quiet to avoid drawing attention. We must be crystal clear. We stand with Israel. We will make sure Israel has what it needs to take care of its citizens, defend itself, and respond to this attack.
President Biden and the White House confirming that 14 Americans have been slaughtered by Hamas and 20 U.S. citizens are missing. Biden also saying that Americans are being held hostage by Hamas. The families of the victims kidnapped by the terror group are begging Biden to act.
And they are responsible to bring the U.S. citizens back home safe and sound. We expect nothing less from the U.S. administration and from President Biden.
I'm asking the U.S. not to take a backseat, to do what they can to make this end for us as soon as possible, to become family, whole again.
The president showing some leadership today, but where has this version of Joe Biden been? Biden practically sat silent for 2 days without any on-camera public statements as Israel dealt with the worst terror attack in its history. His White House was forced to clean up after him and post tweets that claimed Biden was, quote, receiving regular updates on the situation from his national security team. All right, Dana, I'll go to you first.
Okay.
The president promised that the United States would stand by Israel 100%. Mm-hmm. Number one, why did it take 4 days for him to say this? And number two, how long do you think this promise will be good for, given the fact that urban warfare, which is where we're headed in Gaza, can be extremely long and extremely difficult?
Well, I thought his comments today, once he finally made them, had some moral clarity to them. I think there was a missed opportunity to not talk about Iran, but to talk about good versus evil, or stand with Israel. And you could quibble with, maybe you could say this, maybe you could say that. He doesn't often give public comments right away. Think back to the Afghanistan withdrawal. There was a period of about 48 hours, maybe 72 hours, where he was silent during all of that withdrawal. And we kept saying, why isn't the president speaking? I don't know why he is so slow to do that, because I imagine that what he said today is probably what he thought initially. Perhaps their internal process is one that it just takes them a little bit of time. Another thing that I would have made very clear is that any Palestinian killed in this response, they are the victims of Hamas as well, not the Israelis. And I don't know if that can help some of the public perception, but social media, if you see some of these disgusting excuses being made about Hamas, that is just deplorable. And it is happening kind of all around the world. One of the things that was shocking to me today was to show a poll from Gallup that in 2013, in the Democratic Party, 55% of people in the Democratic Party 10 years ago supported Israel. Today, it's only 38%.
Right.
Why? And what is the responsibility of the leader of the free world, the leader of the Democrats, in order to help try to turn that around? But the Iran piece was missing today. It's not going to go away. The other thing that's happening is they can delay him getting out there and making a statement, but we all are seeing, everyone in the world is seeing exactly what Hamas did here in real time because of social media. So the old tactic of waiting to talk doesn't seem to work that well anymore.
Brian, as Dana mentioned, missing from Biden's speech was Iran. But Biden, it's the Wall Street Journal is the one that told us that Iran was behind it, orchestrating it, providing weapons, training, and yet we don't hear this from the administration. But one of the things Biden said was to any country thinking of taking advantage, don't. And he was very firm. But didn't Iran already do that?
Yeah, and I guess he specifically was thinking about Hezbollah. Hey, if you're going to start bombing in the north, or if you're going to start with Syria, with those renegade outlets there that basically has become a terrorist state, there's no doubt about it, Iran played a role. The president calls out Iran directly, we could be looking at a major war. So he's being calculated, but there's ways to insinuate we know exactly what's going on. You know what I would love to have seen, Judge? I would love to have seen him say, listen, I gave you guys a chance. After maximum pressure campaign, I thought Trump was all wrong. The previous administration was all wrong. I gave you a chance. I met in Oman. We weren't supposed to know about that. I released sanctions. I allowed you to pump out more oil. We saw all that happen. And now I realize it's a mistake. Back to maximum pressure. Here we go again. And the Washington Post expanded on what the Wall Street Journal said. And the Washington Post said planning began a year ago. And not only did Iran help tactically, they helped set up weapons manufacturing plants. And Hezbollah pitched in. What was so crazy about the Wall Street Journal story, what was it, 24 hours after?
Yes.
We found out that they were having bi-weekly meetings in Beirut. Excuse me? Who knew this? I would find a way to call up reporters, not threaten them, just say, listen, this is a huge problem. How the hell did you find that out? After all, I don't see that being a threat. Just say, if you're comfortable giving me the sources, I would love to confirm this, because this has got to stop right now.
Mm-hmm. All right, Jessica, Biden didn't demand that Hamas return those American hostages or demand that not a hair on the body of any American be touched going forward. Are you confident that the president has the backs of Americans over there?
Absolutely. I mean, I've seen bipartisan support and adulation for this speech. I mean, there are people on social media who are conservatives, very pro-Israel, saying that this is a speech that Barack Obama would not have made when he was in office, that this was one of the more pro-Israel speeches you could ever have envisioned. So, I'm sorry if maybe he didn't say exactly the words that you wanted in the order that you wanted them, but his message was unequivocally clear. And I would add to that I think that he has been clear since day one of this. He spoke to the American people on Saturday afternoon. He came out and he said without equivocation, we stand with Israel. There was no talk of the Palestinians, making sure that there's no loss of life in the Gaza Strip, said we have your back. In terms of what he's been doing then in the interim days when he's been disappointing you, I guess, that he's not on camera, there was a joint statement that came out last night signed by the U.S., France, Germany, Italy, coming together, speaking out in support of Israel. Bibi Netanyahu has thanked President Biden for his support, the Israeli ambassador to the U.S., the Israeli ambassador to the UN. The White House now lit up in the Israeli flag colors, something that was upsetting you yesterday. So I don't really get, besides kind of partisan bickering, what the problem is with how Joe Biden has addressed this. If it's good enough for Netanyahu, it should be good enough for you.
He's got no choice. Yeah.
What do you mean?
He's got no choice because we're our number one benefactor. So Israel, they have no choice but to praise, just like Zelensky has to say, thanks for giving me just enough to survive, not to win, because we are their number one benefactor. I will say this. The one thing problem is Obama and Biden have one thing in common. They despise Netanyahu.
Yes.
Remember, he was whispered telling Sarkozy, I have to deal with Netanyahu every day. Yep. He still hasn't invited him to the White House, never congratulated him on the way.
He did invite him to the White House last month. And now there are people like this former Israeli defense minister who's calling on the opposition people to not form an emergency government with Netanyahu, that he needs to resign. Netanyahu's problems are at home. They are not with us.
They do not like each other.
Yeah, they don't. And Obama didn't like him. And the bottom line is there's nobody better than Netanyahu in a situation like this. In a situation like this, how do you negotiate or protect Americans, Craig, when the Israelis are being used as human shields?
I don't know. I'm not an expert in that. I will say that I thought it was a strong speech. And you can get, petty about the words, I guess, but there's a lot of problems with this administration. That wasn't a problem. Mm-hmm. I mean, my bar is very low for Joe Biden. I was relieved he didn't compare the attack to a fire in the kitchen. So that was good. That's a win in my book. However, it's not like I was fortified or empowered by it, because I guess it's just words right now, and I'm waiting for the deeds. I thought the words were strong, but I always go by the deeds. So we have to wait and see. I know a lot of people were, saying, why did he mention Iran? I don't think that was the problem. I think that right now we have to talk about our vulnerability, right? Our immediate threat. And we have one. It's called the southern border, and it's unprotected. And it would have been nice for him to say, we're going to close, treat it like we did with COVID, right? We got to close the border. We got to get troops down there. We got to treat this as a serious threat to the United States. I think that this is a stark, scary moment for the West. After 9/11, we were devastated, but there was never a concern that we weren't being led by a team of people with fortitude and will. I feel that right now we're dealing with a leadership deficit, and I'm giving him credit for that speech, albeit it was a couple of days late, and he could have done it instead of going to a barbecue. But right now, it's not like we're at baseline. I feel like we're in a hole, leadership-wise, and I don't think we can pretend that we're in a good place right now, and I think we have to wait and see tonight. It hasn't been a change. All we're getting is bad news. So I give him props for unequivocally being on the side of Israel, but those are the words. I want to see the deeds.
All right.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.